it's your girl, Miss Emma Jean. Welcome back to another edition of Driver's Side Chat. This week's episode is titled, Gimme Some Credit Part 2. Yes, I'm coming at you again with more information on how to raise those credit scores and how to increase or improve your overall credit profile. A couple weeks ago, if you've been watching, I did a video on the FICO scoring system, what the FICO score is, what it consists of, and what I gave you a few tips here and there on what you can do to make sure that you're maximizing each area that makes up the FICO score to ultimately maximize your score. So I didn't want to leave you guys hanging because I got some comments, some text messages and things like that letting me know that, you know, it's helpful. Thank you for sharing that information. Where did you learn all this? I damaged my credit when I was younger and I know I need to work on it. You know, if that's you, you're in the right place. I didn't want to just provide you with that information and then just leave you hanging. So if you did what I said in the previous video, as far as obtaining your credit report, if you're one of those people who said, all right, Emma, I went to annualcreditreport.com. I pulled my 3 credit reports. I see some, you know, a lot of derogatory marks on there, or I see a few things that are on my report that are hurting me. And now what? If that's you, you've come to the right place. Hopefully I can say something that will get you started or get the ball rolling and help you improve your credit profile and your overall quality of life. All right. So let's get going. All right. So the first thing I want to say is that there's no right or wrong way or method of attacking or repairing or improving your credit. This is just the way that I would recommend going about it. And this is just my personal opinion, as are the rest of my videos and ones to come. Just my personal opinion. All right. So again, get your pad and pen, your iPad, whatever it is you want to take notes on, write this down. And let me know if there's anything that I said to confuse you, or something that doesn't make sense and you'd like for me to elaborate on more. Definitely reach out, DM me, email me, whatever. Hit me up and I'll be happy to help. All right. Okay. So the first thing I would recommend that you do is look at the first page of each of your 3 credit reports, because you should have 3, with one with each of the credit bureaus: Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. Look at that first page, and the first thing you should see listed on each of those is your personal information. You're going to see your name. You're going to see any aliases that you may have or have been known of in the past, and you will see your addresses and maybe even some employer information. If any of that is incorrect, you are going to want to update that. If your name is spelled incorrectly, if they put your middle name on one and put your middle initial on one, or maybe there's an alias on there that doesn't even belong to you. Maybe it belongs to one of your siblings or one of your parents because you guys shared an address and maybe your profiles got mixed up in some way. Whatever the case may be, you are going to want to minimize those names and aliases to, I would say, no more than 2. Anything other than what's on your birth certificate, delete it, get rid of it. Addresses. If you have an address on there that's super old, you're going to want to take that off. If you have the same address on there multiple times, spelled different ways, you're going to want to have those removed. Anything that is, I would say, keep your 2 most recent addresses. If it's anything older than that, have it removed. If maybe there's an address on there with a residence where you've never even lived, you're going to want to have that removed as well. Why is this important? The reason it is important to update your personal information on your credit profile is because later on I'm going to talk about how to have negative information removed from your credit profile. So if you update your personal information and you get rid of some old addresses or maybe some variations of your name that are not quite right, and they're tied to one of those negative accounts that you're going to want to delete that's hurting your credit, once you update your personal information, it's going to make it a lot easier to delete and remove those negative accounts from your credit profile if it's tied to some of those various names, alias, and addresses, if that makes sense. So the whole purpose of updating your personal info is to increase the chances of you being able to delete negative information from your credit report. Okay? All right. So how do you do that? You can do this in one of 3 ways. You can do it online. at transunion.com, experian.com, equifax.com. You can call their 800 numbers. You guys could Google all of that. Or you can send a letter in the mail to the credit bureaus and ask them to delete these because they are not yours. That's not your name. You've never lived there. Whatever your reason is, let them know. They'll be able to help you. All right. Next, again, on the last video I did on credit, I talked about the FICO scoring system and how 35% of our FICO credit score is made up of your payment history, or how you've been with paying things on time in the past, whether you were late, whether you paid it promptly, whether you were sometimes late. Your payment history essentially is the biggest, most influential part of your credit score. So with that being said, I would start with negative accounts that I fell behind on, that I got delinquent on, that maybe were sold to a collection agency or something like that. Okay. If you don't know what a collection agency is, I'll give you an example. Let's say you had a credit card with a $2,000 credit limit from Bank of America. You lost your job, you had some major life event take place where you fell behind and you did not make a payment for 3 to 4 months on that credit card. After 3 to 4 months, Bank of America has basically said, all right, they're probably not going to pay me. Let me go ahead and charge off or write off this account and sell it, and then I can write it off on my taxes and basically get it back on the taxes, claim it on their taxes as a deduction. The collection agency that they sold it to basically would purchase that account for pennies on the dollar. So you had a $2,000 credit card with Bank of America. They maybe sold it to Portfolio Recovery. Portfolio Recovery bought the account from Bank of America for like $200. It's usually pennies on the dollar, I promise you. It's not the full amount or even close to it. So at that point, Portfolio Recovery is going to start calling you 1,000 times a day, calling your job, calling your friends, your auntie, your cousin, looking for you, trying to get all $2,000, even though they only paid $200. Okay, that is a collection. That is what a collection agency is. And so the first thing you're going to want to do is validate that debt and make sure that Portfolio Recovery is actually, that they have the right to collect that debt on behalf of Bank of America. So you're going to want to make sure, number one, that they can legally collect in your state. You can find that by going to the Secretary of State website for the state you reside in. All right. It's going to vary state by state. And you're going to want to look up Portfolio Recovery on that website and see if they are allowed to collect or to be a debt collector in the state you reside in. If they cannot, or if you see that their right to collect in your state has been revoked, then you already you're on a good path, because you can easily get rid of that, because they're operating illegally. They're violating your rights as a consumer by trying to get you to pay them when they legally aren't authorized to collect in your state. Please let me know if you have questions about that, and I'll be happy to answer. Next, you're going to want to write a debt validation letter to the collection agency, not to Bank of America. That's been charged off. It sucks. It's damaging your credit, but we'll get to that later. We're going to worry about the collection agency first. So you're going to write them what's called a debt validation letter. Them as in your Portfolio Recovery Associates, Midland. There's a bunch of them out there. I can't think of off the top of my head, but it's going to be at the very bottom of your credit report under collections. Okay. You're going to write them a debt validation letter. You can Google templates so that you can customize to fit your situation, and you can send those to the collection agency. Okay. You're going to include your return address, the account number as listed on your credit report, and you are going to basically have them verify that you owe the debt. It's not whether or not you owe it, it's whether or not they can prove that you owe it. So you're going to want them to tell you who the original creditor is. This is what you're putting in the letter. Who was the original creditor? Who did you buy this debt? Who did you buy this account from? Also, what else? Who's the original creditor? How much do I owe? And has this passed the statute of limitations? Meaning, can you sue me for this? If this is within the statute of limitations, there is a possibility that you can be sued if you wake the sleeping giant with this letter. However, if it's past the statute of limitations, I know in my state, which is North Carolina, it's 3 years. The statute of limitation is 3 years, which means you can't be sued in North Carolina if you start pursuing deletion of accounts off of your credit report after the account has been there for at least 3 years. Also, you're going to want them to send you any proof or documentation they have to show that you actually do owe money on this account. You can't just say I owe it, you have to prove it to me. And you're going to want to send that letter via certified mail. Certified mail, it costs a few dollars more than your standard mail, but you need to send it certified because you want to keep tabs on when they receive the letter, because they are legally required to respond to you within 30 days from the date that they receive the letter from you. So definitely send anything that you send about your credit, send it certified mail. I know it adds up. It's like $3.95, but it's well worth it in the end, because nobody can say, oh, I never received that letter. All right. Next, you have medical collections. Medical collections are you went to urgent care or to the hospital or whatever. You didn't pay your bill. The hospital or the doctor's office sold your account to a collection agency. All right. So you're going to send a different type of letter. You're going to send a HIPAA validation letter. And basically, you can also look that up on Google. You're going to want to Google it, change it, customize it to fit your situation. In this letter, you're going to basically do the same thing you did with the collection agencies for all other types of accounts. You're going to ask them to validate the debt. You're going to provide them with the account number shown on your report. Don't give them any of your personal information outside of your mailing address. That's all they need. Don't give them your social or anything like that. Just give them the account number found on your credit report. All right. Ask them to send you a bill or a statement proving that this is your account, because you don't know that it's your account. That's basically the assumption here. All right. What you're hoping to happen here is that the medical collection agency is going to send you a detailed copy telling you, oh, well, you had an x-ray, or you had a flu shot, or you were having chest pains, etc., etc. At that point, if that medical collection agency sends you anything like that with your medical records or what you were seen for at the hospital, they have violated HIPAA laws. And from there, you could definitely easily get that taken off, because you didn't consent to your information to the hospital or the doctor's office you went to release your information to any third parties. So is that a trap? Absolutely. But so yeah, if it sounds like a trap, it absolutely is. You're basically trying to tie up those medical debt collectors and trick them into sending you what the hospital or doctor's office sent them. So for instance, if the doctor's office sent them your medical records, they violated HIPAA. So that's what you're trying to, that's the goal here, is to get them to violate HIPAA, because you should not be privy to anything I had done at the doctor as a collection agency. I did not release or authorize or sign anything authorizing this my medical provider to send you my medical records, if that makes sense. Again, anything you're sending, you're going to want to send it via certified mail. Reason being, you want to keep up with it. You want to keep a log, a calendar, a planner, or whatever, so that you can keep up with when you sent things, when the recipient received it, so that no one can say they didn't get what you sent. And also, the reason why it's important to have those timestamps is because you have to give everyone 30 days from the date of receipt, not the date that you send it, but from the date that the recipient receives your letter. You have to give them 30 days to respond. So it's very important that you keep up with that. Sending it certified is a way to guarantee that it gets there, and that you have proof when you start disputing things that, hey, I sent them this and they either didn't respond or whatever. All right. Another thing that you can include in your collection validation letter or your medical collection validation letter is if this collector is calling you nonstop, you can also ask them to discontinue any phone calls. Please don't call me anymore. Any communication should be sent to the return address at the top of my letter. Always include your return address when communicating with anyone regarding your credit, because that's the only way that you want them to communicate with you, so that you can have a paper trail. All right. Again, you have to give these collection agencies 30 to 35 days to get you something back. Okay, you have to give them 30 to 35 days to take action. Basically, you want to have them delete anything that's inaccurate and anything that they cannot prove, but you got to give them time. You did not ruin your credit overnight, and you're not going to fix it overnight, so be patient with the process. So again, that's going to be your first step, doing those, or your second step rather. The first step was updating your personal information. The second step is sending out those debt validation letters to the collection agencies listed on your credit report, asking them to prove that you owe the debt. And how do you know it's mine, basically, is what you're asking them. And if you can't prove it, you need to remove it. Okay. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is if for some reason the debt validation process didn't work for you, you sent the letters and they validated it saying, I know you owe it because I have XYZ, then or maybe you didn't have collections. If you don't have collections on your credit report, then you're going to start with what I'm going to talk about next. Maybe you have a charge off or delinquent student loans or child support. I kind of cringe when I say child support, because you need to pay your child support. You know, you don't, whether it's deleted from your credit report or not, you need to take care of your kids financially. But this isn't what that's about. But just to give you an example, like the next section that I'm going to be talking about is how to remove other negative information from your credit report, your charge-offs, any collections that were not removed when you sent the debt validation letters, repossessions, bankruptcies, etc., etc. What you'll want to use here is a 609 letter. All right, you can Google that as well. There are tons of templates out there for you to use. Just Google 609 letter. All right. Section 609 of the Fair Credit Reporting Act basically gives consumers the right to request any and all information in their credit profile. You can request proof, basically, that what you're reporting on my credit profile is accurate. You have the right to receive anything that's being reported on your credit profile, and any creditors, any collection agencies, whomever, they have to provide you with whatever they have in their repository regarding you and your credit profile. Okay, so in a 609 letter, you're basically saying, if you don't have substantial evidence that this is my account, that I charged off this Bank of America card, if you don't have evidence, and Bank of America is a horrible example, because they are the hardest bank ever to get removed if you've ever done wrong by them. So this is just for the sake of example. But anyways, take the template, customize it to your situation, and you're basically saying, you know, hey Experian, hey TransUnion, hey Equifax, and you're going to send a letter to each one of these credit bureaus separately. This Bank of America account, I'm not sure it's mine. Per section 609 of the Fair Credit Reporting Act, you're required to investigate. If you did not find substantial evidence that this belongs to me, please delete it immediately. That's basically the gist of it. You want to sound as much like a real person as you can, because so many people are disputing things in their credit profile with all of these letters. I mean, with all these letters and stuff with legal lingo and lots of quoting laws and things like that, that these credit bureaus and collection agencies sometimes will just put your letter in this machine that reads it, called eOscar, and the machine will just spit out an automatic response and send it to you in the mail saying, oh, well, this is validated and it's yours, without anyone ever having validated it. So try not to sound too legal, too smart. Like, just dumb it down and make it as rudimentary and as simple as you possibly can to try and skip over that eOscar system. That's another section for a different day. There's so much to be said about credit, and how all of this stuff works. But anywho, the only difference between not the only difference, but one of the major differences between the debt validation letters that you would send to a collection agency versus the 609 that you send into the credit bureau is that in your letters to the credit bureau, you will need to include a government issue photo ID, a copy of your government issue photo ID, and a copy of your social security card. You do not put that in your debt validation letters to collection agencies. You don't say anything like that to collection agencies. You don't even sign your letter to collection agencies. You just type it. But to the credit bureaus, you're going to sign it. You're going to include a copy of your government issue photo ID and a copy of your social security card. All right. Again, send it certified. Give them 30 to 35 days to respond, and just let the process work itself out. See what they say in return. If you decide to start this process based off of what I've shared, please give me feedback on how the process is working for you. If there are questions about something I've said in this video, please hit me up. Miss Emma Jean's vlog at gmail.com. DM me on social media. Whatever, however it is that you found me, just hit me up and I'll be glad to answer. Comment, like, subscribe, hit the bell so that you can get these notifications every Wednesday when I upload new material for you. Thank you again for tuning in. Thank you for everyone who has liked or shared any of my videos on any platform. I truly appreciate you. And yeah, as always, give me your feedback. But yeah, I'm about to roll out. See y'all next time. Peace.